I'm waiting. There we go. Says you are recording. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Let me just introduce a few people from Data Enterprise. So we have Lisa Keeter, who's on the call today. Lisa has been a part of KDE, I know for as long as I have, for at least 8 years, right, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm going on 8. I'm in my 8th year now, so.
Well, we must have joined about the same time then. Okay, all right. And Lisa is the one who has been working on these forms for us, playing around with them. Lisa's got some GT background. Lisa, you were a GT teacher, is that correct? Or either had GT students?
All of the above, but
All
GT students in a math class. I did my master's in teacher leadership and gifted education, or with a focus in gifted education. I just never bothered to take the praxis test. So
You didn't?
to put
Well,
that,
you're just missing something special there. Let me just tell you. That's an
yeah.
interesting test.
So well,
Yes,
I was coming to KDE just as I finished my master's, who
right.
didn't care if I had it. So I was like, well, why pay them $75 to put that certification on my, or that endorsement on my certification? I'll just wait and see if I need it. Take the test later. So
Okay.
never took the test, but
And then we're also joined by Hillary Morton. Hillary, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Hillary. I am fairly new to KDE, fairly new to education, and I am the one that tries my best to help Kathy with as many of your all's questions.
Well, thank you, Hillary, for being on the call today. And so Hillary and Lisa, we've got several different cadre leaders. So we have cadres that meet across the state. They volunteer to come together to support each other from all across the state. There's about 9 of them. Toddy, who you see on the screen there, she is the leader. She and Kathy Carver, who came up a few minutes ago, they are co-leading the Western Kentucky cadre. And then Beth Patrick, who you saw come up a few minutes ago, she is from the Lake Cumberland region, or the southeast, south central region. And Michelle Kaysen works with the Central Kentucky region. Trying to see who else is on here. Janet Frazier, she works with the OVEC region. Who else do I see? Shannon was on here a minute ago. Shannon works with the northern region. Who else did I leave out, you guys? Anybody that's on the call today? I apologize if I left anybody out.
KVEC.
KVEC, yes. And then
Me.
Kim, go ahead if you want to talk.
Oh no, just Kim Surgent. Just glad to be
Yeah.
here. I get to be here for a little while. I've got another meeting at 1:30, but I'm going to definitely watch the recording.
Right, right. We also have people from the northern, northeastern region, the KDEC region, but I don't think they're on here today, are they? I don't think so. And we also have someone who represents GREC, but they're not on here today. And let's see, we've got a few other people that aren't on here, but that's why we're recording it, so that they can listen later. All right, guys. So this is just kind of some ideas that Lisa's been working with, and we wanted to get your feedback since you represent those regions. And if you've got any questions at any time, feel free just to either raise your hand using that little tool there, or just kind of wave at me, or just speak up, whatever. And be glad to pause for those. So as you know, we've been looking for something that auto-populates the information, because many of you have got a heavy lift. Some of you have got 800 plus students that you have to create GSSPs for every year in progress reports. So this is the new ideas that Lisa has come up with. So what you do, of course, is you find a student like you normally do, right? And then once you've found that student, then you click on Documents. It's going to ask you if you want to leave that page, and you do want to leave that page. So she's created a kind of a new temporary draft of a form, and then you click Create Custom Form, and then from the drop down, her draft form is called GSSP grades 4 through 12, 2 areas. She hasn't done any more areas than that. That's as far as we've gotten so far. But you click that, and then you click Create Document, and then it takes a few minutes for the form to populate. And Oh, this didn't work the way I thought it was. Let me, I thought I had done a student that I hadn't created one for. Let me go back and let's see if I can just do a different student. Just start from scratch. My bad, you guys. All right, so the student is not gifted and talented, so we'll just add some things real quick for this student here. Just give me a second here. Did I click a category? No. All right. All right, we'll save that. All right, and you could go up and do 2 right now, but if we decide to go this direction, we could do, you know, more than 2 areas that you'd see on the document. Then you go to Documents, then you go to New Document, create a custom form, select the form, click Create Document. Takes a few minutes here. There's Shannon. Letting Shannon in the door. Hey, Shannon.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm showing, well, that it worked differently. Lisa, why didn't it ask me to have that little bar where you select the area?
It looks like you're in one that you're. Does the student only have one area?
Yes.
Then I
Is that
guess
why?
it's probably smart enough if there's only one gifted record. I hadn't tried that. That if they only have one
Oh,
gifted record, there's only one to select. So it says, hey, I got it.
and it
And
goes
it
ahead
filled it
and
in.
populates a form. Okay. Well, okay.
So I guess that means if we get it to where it has all 12 or 11 categories on there, as long as if they don't have a primary talent pool, I guess it would auto-populate them all.
Huh.
So that's
Okay.
good, something to know. There's something
That
wrong
is
with this
something.
form. You see where it says false down there on the second column where there's no data?
Yes.
That's a boo-boo in my form where it's pulling the data from the first record into 2 places. So
Okay.
that's just
All right.
something to be fixed, but doesn't matter because it was just a test case. So
Right. So I'll demonstrate here with 1 and then go back and do a kid with 2 to show you how that works. But this is what the form looks like so far. And so it populates, as you can see, some student demographic information. It gives the gifted areas at the top with the codes beside them. And then it gives the service options in the table to the left. And then it is looking at all the different service options that have been pulled over into the form. And then if the student has that particular service option selected on their record, then it will provide a true response beside it. If they don't have that service option selected, then it gives a false. And that's how that works there. And then there's a table here for comments. Okay, let me see if I can go back and find a kid I haven't played around with. Let's do Elizabeth Bauer here, and I'll give her 2 so that you can see how that works right now. So we'll just do leadership and some mentorships there. We'll do some of this. Okay, save that. And let's see. Let's do art. All right, so this student has 2 areas that they've been identified for. So again, you go to Documents, New Document, you create the form, select the draft form from the drop-down, click Create the Document, wait a couple of seconds for it to think about it. And then it has this box. So you click in the box for the gifted status, and you can select up to 2 records. So you can select that one and then select again for those 2 different records. And then click create form. It pops that in there. And again, there's the codes. So 3 is for leadership and 8 is for art. And it gives you the true and false statements again for those services being provided. So that is how that is working right now, to auto-populate that information where you don't have to click it in there. So thoughts about that so far?
I have some thoughts.
Okay. All right, Toddy.
First of all, I think we're off to a great start. To know that we have a form that can be pre-populated it's incredible. This is going to save weeks and weeks of work. My first question is, can this be saved into the parent portal?
Yes, I believe it can. Right, Lisa?
Yes, it can.
Actually,
this is already set up to show in parent portal.
Perfect.
This test one is.
Okay. My other question, and this would be just a matter of making it easy on parents, because this is our communication to parents, right? I'm wondering if all of the false boxes could be blank and the true boxes just maybe have an X, so that parents see a more aesthetically pleasing form. Would that be a possibility?
I understand and I agree with you, because I was a parent of 2 GT kids. So if you've worked with ad hoc in Infinite Campus, you will have seen that for fields that are a checkbox, like these are check boxes that are either, they really have a yes, no value to them.
Yes.
This default, what was available to me to use was the true false. I didn't like the true false because the false is bigger than the true. I'm hoping that we can we won't be able to get it to an X and a blank, because that's not an option in ad hoc. But ad hoc lets you pick, you can format that 1-0, which is what it really is in the background in the computer's brain. You can format it to be yes, no, like a capital yes, or with the leading letter capitalized and lowercase es and no. And I thought that might be more visually pleasing, but I don't think we'll be able to get it to a blank. But because this is the the gifted record is a Kentucky only thing, the version of it we have is specific to Kentucky. I'm hoping that we can get campus to modify the values they're pulling back into this custom form. But we haven't asked them about that yet, because we wanted to make sure that it made sense to some extent before we started asking for possible changes, because we've been told for a year and a half it wasn't possible to do what this is doing right now. So before I started asking for miracles, I wanted to get something that did something. But
right. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I'm thinking that at least whatever the ad hoc options are, we'd be able to do. I don't know if they would be able to, if they'd be willing to make it a blank and an X or something like that. But
or even true in a blank, just, so it's not so busy. And believe me, I'm just
and I understand that. It's just showing a blank is not an option ever in ad hoc. When you have a field that's a checkbox, it's either you're going to get yes, no, true, false, but there's not a show nothing if it's a false option. So I don't know if they
What
will
about,
be able to do that or not. So
what about like an NA for not applicable?
I'm just guessing that the options that are already in ad hoc will be our most likely choices that they'll be able to do. But we can ask for anything, but it doesn't mean we can get it. So we'll ask. It's just
the yes no would definitely be more parent friendly than
Yeah.
true and false.
yes, it would be.
But man, the blank would be even better because they're not going to read all this.
Or a dash. If there's just a dash instead of a false, then it'll draw the eyes to whatever value means true. Then wording it up with true, false, true, false. Does that make sense?
Totally. I just don't know what options they'll give us. This, at a minimum, we can get this. And so I guess it's this works now. So if you weighed if campus isn't willing to change it or able to change it at all, is it worth it auto-populating versus you guys going in and trying to write the numbers in and all that stuff? Because I personally, as a parent, reading the form that we've got now where you had to type all the numbers after for what services it was for which area of giftedness, to me that wasn't very user friendly either. So it's a trade-off, but you're right, you can easily see there's some service for some reason in the form we're using now. But if we can't make it any prettier than this, would you want it?
I don't know about, I'm so sorry. Like, I am just so happy that we have an auto-populated form. I guess part of me is afraid that if we were to say, yeah, we'll take it, that maybe there won't be changes coming because this isn't quite what parents need to see. And I don't know how else to say it. But I'm so happy that it's able to be auto-populated.
So other thoughts? I'm looking at some of the responses in the chat over here.
One of the questions, Kathy, was, could they keep the state form if we switch to this form? Like, I guess the option to have both forms.
Oh.
And I don't, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be one or the other.
Well, technically, there's no reason we couldn't leave them both active. Because right now, Kathy, if you go back and do new document, save this if you want to before you get out. But right now, the existing state published form is in here as an option if you do new, as well as the ones I've been playing around with. It just might be more confusing to have multiple active. But if we left one that we wouldn't really want to change the name on the one that exists, because then that would make it get confused for historical reasons. But we could maybe name the new one Auto or something, or it just have to have a unique name. They just have to be different. But yeah, right. You could leave the fill it in yourself form active, and for people that prefer that, you could have both.
But I would need to talk with leadership about that before making any kind of decision. And of course, I would give them your input about, why you would want to keep both. So,
and I think somebody brought up another good point is the transfer. We could test this to see if it transfers between districts, because I know that that's something that's been really big, is making sure that the records transfer. So whoever gets the new district, they don't have to create a new one. We haven't been able to test it yet to make sure that it does transfer between the two districts, or
Well,
how
we have tested and it doesn't work right now, but campus is investigating what changed with gifted records, because other custom forms do transfer as a PDF document. You can't import them where they're live documents, but you can see a historical version of it. And the original very first custom form that was ever made, where the GSSP and the progress report were all one document,
the legacy.
it does transfer. So they don't know what changed. They're looking into it as to why the legacy form still, it wasn't called legacy when you were creating it, but the legacy forms does transfer, but the other ones don't. So they're investigating that too. That's so the goal is we'll get it where any of these forms, custom forms being used for gifted, would be able to transfer as a PDF document. They won't ever auto import like the gifted record itself does, because you don't really need it to auto import necessarily. But you could see it as a history. Janet has her hand raised.
Thank you. Yes. My question is, let's say it pre-populates, but then how do I edit it for maybe one or two of the things that changed for this student? Would I be better off just making a new record?
You mean a new gifted student service plan?
Right. Yeah, a new GSSP.
Yes. You could make a new one.
Because most of our students have different services each year, and I want to honor the work that we've done in the school so far to take individual looks at students. So we have a custom form that we've uploaded, and it populates the demographic information, but not the service options.
Right. Kathy, can you go back to a created form of the one we were looking at? I was surprised when I looked at the state versions we have now that they don't have a date range of when that GSSP applies to, because as a parent, I expected it to be different year to year. And I understand not creating a new wheel when nothing's changed, but when oh, you didn't actually save this for this kid before, did you?
I think I saved this one.
Okay. Okay. Kathy skipped down to the part that was the exciting auto-populate that you haven't seen before, but right here at the top, I made this up. Stop, Kathy, at the top where it's demographics. I put school year in there so that when you create a new plan, it is a plan for 1 year. We could do a start date, end date field, and those would not have to auto-populate. Right now, I've got it auto-populating based off the year that's selected at the top when you created the record, because it's pulling the student's enrollment to find active students and that kind of stuff. So it knows what year the student's enrollment is in. And I didn't know if that was something you guys would want or not, but
Definitely.
That's exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I think that's important. But so the guidance then to our people at the school level who are building these GSSPs, is this correct? You would say to them, if there are no changes, please review the GSSP from last year. If there are no changes, then you can just select pre-populated. If there are changes in service options, then create a new GSSP. Is that what I'm thinking is right?
To make the changes, Kathy, we go back to the gifted record, please. To change what's going to auto-populate, you have to update this actual gifted record.
Yeah.
To show what services are being offered. And the way we've done it in Kentucky, we don't ever end date this record to show the history of what services were offered when the kid was in 4th grade versus when the student is in 9th grade. We
Mhm.
just keep editing this record and saving over the top of it, so we lose that history. So I thought this might be nice that the GSSP, if you're in the same district where you can continue to see the year after year, would capture those changes from year to year. So you would have that history. So you would have, for 2021, this is what was done. And you could always do another one,
Mhm.
or you could have, if you needed to, you could edit the one. I don't know what would happen. I haven't tried that. I haven't tried to change the gifted record in the same year and then re-pull up that form and see if it changes the values that are populated into it. But
Mhm.
that's something we definitely would test, kind of things that we knew. And then, but as you create that new record for the new school year and it puts that date range in there, you've got that year saved. And then as somebody changes the record, it's not going to change. We need to test that. We need to see if the gifted service plan changes automatically if you change this record, because you wouldn't want it to go back and change the historical records, right? If you had one from last year, you wouldn't want to have 5 that looked exactly the same from 3 different years, or
Mhm.
3 from 3 different years. There's several hands raised. Janet, I think you're the one.
Oh, did I not put my hand down? Nope, I didn't.
You're
I have
still-
other questions, but I don't want to get us off this topic, so I'll save those for a little bit later.
Well, somebody else had their hand raised, but they put it down now. So,
So I've got a question. And I'm glad Janet brought that up. So, at the beginning of each year, we have our GSSPs describing the services for that year. And then maybe a couple of months into the school year, services might change. For example, we might have leadership students at the high school who are volunteering to mentor, and now a mentorship is added on to some 5th graders, let's say. So this is where I go, what's on the screen. I click on mentorships, I change the GSSP, and I notify parents. This is going to be the same school year as the one from the beginning of the year. Is that going to create a glitch? Will it just replace it, or?
Our current one doesn't have any dates on it, does it?
I don't think so.
I mean, we could put a start date, end date on this if we wanted to. It just depends on what works for you guys and what you need.
I love it being on there without us having to type it in, because the less we click, the less we type. You might think, oh, putting in a date range and having to click on it isn't a big deal. But when you do it 700 times, it is a huge deal.
Well, the date range could auto populate like as today's date. If you started a new record today, that it would auto populate today's date and make the end date June 30th. This is not going to be smart enough like the IEPs, that is very much a computer program that's very specific, running, making those things work together, where that it's smart enough that you can say, as I create a new document, automatically go back and end date the other document as of the day before. It's not going to be that smart, because it's not that level of functionality that we're using here. Kathy, can you scroll down, take a screenshot of some of the true falses we're seeing here? Well, grade skipping is false. That's easy. Go back and on Elliot's record and say that he grade skipped for his general intellectual ability. And let's see if it automatically changes it. Okay, go into his documents. Now, if you lock this record, I know it couldn't change, but we'll change. I didn't get a chance to read that message. Kathy, did you read it before you clicked OK? It hasn't changed it yet. It still says false. but I don't know what the message said. It said something about modifying data or something.
Let me do it again. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's say that we change it. We take that off. And we make it.
Well, I don't think that'll matter, but go ahead and.
Okay, documents.
It may just be because it's not a locked document that it's warning you.
Yeah, it's going to. Right. Saving this form will change the document modified date and thus impact the school year it falls. Do you still want to open the form?
Oh, okay. So even though you can't see the modified date on the form, it is stored. You see down there at the bottom, it says in the little gray box, created date and last modified date. We could also make the modified date display on the form. I just didn't because I wasn't sure when the service plans get created. I wasn't sure like if a student is at the end of 3rd grade and they've qualified, if you go ahead and make the GSSP at the end of 3rd grade for what's going to cover for 4th grade. I didn't know the timing of when those are normally done, or if they're normally done at the beginning of the 1st year. I was always in middle school, so I know what we did in middle school, but and each school is different, I'm sure. So that's just a warning. Hey, you're going to change the modified date. So you opened it. But when we opened it, even with that other record checked, it did not change it. So Kathy, if you cancel out of this, go back and add back to the gifted record. Make some change to it. Do the grade skipping just because it shows so at the very top of the screen.
Okay. Go back to documents now.
Yes, ma'am, and make a new one this time. Because when we opened the old one, it didn't change it. It didn't change the forms. Or it didn't change the data in it. Now, because he has 3 areas of giftedness, it's asking you to choose them. Make sure you choose O2 so we see it. I would choose them in order because to me, you see at the back where it says category O2 and O5 and 12. I would want to choose them in sequential order because I'm anal that way. Because I would want his O2 record to be the first one in the box and then the O5. But
so what does this mean though? So you're saying O2
well,
and O5. So
you see at the far right. See the far right? It says category.
Oh yeah. Okay. And we wouldn't let 12 show. We would take that out because 12's primary.
Well, no, you can't make it not show, but
Well, I mean, not
it'd still
show,
be an
but I
option.
mean,
But just for this student's age, you would not use his 12 record because his primary talent pool is not what you're offering services on.
gotcha.
And I don't know if there's any way to control and make that category, gifted category, show up further to the left, so that it's easier to choose when they've got more than 2, or more than 11, because eventually we would expand this out where 11 categories could show, because Kathy said you only have to do a GSSP for grades 4 through 12. So you would not do a GSSP for somebody in primary talent pool. And if we did, we would make a separate form for primary talent pool. But once we had enough, now that when Kathy did the one that only had one record and it just auto selected, we kind of now know that it would automatically populate them all if we had enough fields defined on here to let them all come in. We just don't have enough. Defining this form is very tedious and very precise, which is why mine was messed up in filling in 2 fields. It'll take a lot of work, but part of what we wanted feedback on is, does this layout make sense? And we get the true false part, but do you like the way this looks? If we could change the true false to at least yes, no, at a minimum, if not all the way to a yes, to a yes and a blank or something, or X and a blank. Janet has her hand raised.
Yeah, so I wanted to go back to that screen where you were telling Kathy to select them in a certain sequence, which then watching you just made me think of another question about, is there any difference or change, or does it affect it at all when you add an area of identification the next year, or maybe in the same year, a different semester? And all you want to do is change the GSSP for that particular, say it's math and the kid's already identified in ELA. And then a year and a half later, they're identified in math. Is there anything that this would have, I just don't know it well enough to know if that would be an issue, raise issues, be confusing to parents, or because you would be changing the GSSP. It's back to what Toddy was talking about. It'd be changing, if you did it in the same year, it'd be changing the GSSP, but only for one area.
Kathy, how about we create well, this is our second GSP. So let's, and you see now it says grade skipping is true. We don't have a start date showing on this, but we could make it where it has an effective date, kind of thing on it. Hit save. And see, now in documents, we have 2 documents, and we can see what dates they were modified on. So we have one from March 2nd, we have one from April 1st. And it's automatically sorting the newest one to the top. You see they're grouped by calendar year. So if we had one from another school year, which we could go back and fake, if we went back and picked 1920, we could create a record and it would show up under the 1920 grouping. So the system is gonna sort these out, but the nice thing to know is none of these are showing up on Portal yet because it's not locked. So Kathy could choose if she had the old one locked so that the parents could see it. She could unlock it so it no longer shows on Portal and then lock the 4-1. Or you could keep them both locked where they can see them both and see that, up until this date, it was these 2 areas and now it's 3 areas. But Kathy, if you lock those, which locking is always required to get it to transfer, if transfer was working correctly, which is not working correctly right now, but if forms are unlocked, they will never transfer and they won't show on Parent Portal.
So do you want me to lock both of them?
Yes, please. Kathy Carver asked, no offense, but you have to lock each individually for it to show on Parent Portal, ? Is there another way to batch lock? I don't think there's any way to batch lock everything, because the whole point is you're saying this record is finished and ready to go, so that you could be working on one. Maybe it takes you a week to get all the services defined. Gifted and talented is unique because you're coming from a record that is where you're really making your changes, and then you just making them visible in here. But normally on a custom form, you might, like we're working on one for preschool, for preschool evaluation from a test. It might take the teacher more than one day or more than one session to get it totally finished before she would want anybody else to be able to see it, and then she would lock it. But Hillary, will you take a note and see if there's a way to batch lock? Sure.
Okay, so I have a really big school. Let's say I do, I work really hard and I get 50 done in a day, and I get them locked and they're able to be seen in Parent Portal. I'm going to start getting calls. Well, why does little Billy's record show up in Parent Portal, but I can't see my Susie's? And so I prefer to get them all done and then show them all at once. Now, I know this for a fact, and I haven't lost my mind yet, but you all can double check that. My supervisor and I pulled up a student to work on something, and one of his 2 documents in there, it wasn't the progress report, it was the GSSP, was locked. And I clicked on it and worked and tried to get it unlocked, and I didn't lock it. So then I started pulling up other seniors, and all the seniors' GSSPs were locked, but I didn't do it. So I don't know how they got locked. So there has to be some other way to lock them or something, because mine got locked.
Well, somebody had to have locked them. It might not have been you. And if more than one person in the district has access to do those things, somebody else could have done it. Your system admin always has access to do everything. And some districts have more than a handful of people with system admin access. Not necessarily a good idea.
I don't think they did it on purpose, though, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, we can check into that. I've never looked for batch locking of gifted records or of these custom forms, but that's something we can look into. I've only played with one kid at a time, so I wasn't thinking that big. So that's really good feedback. So, Janet, do you have another question? Or just
Yes, I do. Sorry. Hey,
it's okay. It's just making sure your hand was really raised for now.
I am never short on questions, it seems like. I don't know. Kathy, can you open one of those so we can see the GSSP? Because I just had you've been asking, do we like it? What other feedback would you give? So this is switching gears a little bit. And if you'd scroll down to where it starts talking about the options.
Okay, you see now that we have it locked and she just opened it. We're not in an edit mode. Things aren't blue anymore.
Okay, so this
now
is
we're just looking at it.
This is what a parent sees.
Yes.
Okay, so my question, if this is front facing to parents, there's over time training that has to be done with parents, right, about how to read a GSSP. But sometimes you don't hit all parents. So on our GSSP, that's a custom form, we just have a little definition out to the side of what each of the options is that is selected for their kid. Is that possible here, just so that they know, what curriculum compact? I don't know what's on here. I don't see the whole thing, but like we have separate pages for our coordinator to complete, and then the teachers themselves actually complete the ones on the type of differentiation they'll be offering in their classroom. So they have things like curriculum compacting, independent study, just the instructional, the real nuts and bolts of instruction. And it helps that those have a definition on it. That saved people time and energy trying to explain to parents what it is that they're looking at on this GSSP. And along those lines, I don't know, I haven't wrapped my brain yet around how a parent might interpret acceleration options and then the other heading of various options. I can't think of something I would offer as an alternative to saying various options, but from a parent standpoint, somehow that hits me as raising more questions than answers. Sorry, I can't help more than that. I'm just throwing that out.
And this is just kind of, there was a form that somebody in Jefferson County had made in this kind of layout of this grid. And that's what I started from, their document. We can lay it out. However, if the groupings don't make sense, we don't have to have them grouped. They don't have to be, right now they're kind of in the same sequential order that they are on the gifted record, because to staff members, checking to make sure that the right box is checked, it being in order as of the gifted record, same order of the gifted record, makes it easier for that to do if you're trying to manually compare them. But to a parent, that's not necessarily a really good order to show them in. If a kid grade skipped, the parents know that. That might not be the highest priority one to put at the top. I don't know. some of these that I think got put in here might have been ones that even, I think I've cleaned it up. There's a couple of the services that are really for primary talent pool that wouldn't make any sense to show on a 4 through 12 GSSP, right? So it's up to you guys. I don't care what order any of this is in. Kathy gets to make this actual form. This is just a starting point to show you what could be possible. There's no need to have to keep like the distance learning subgroup, resources services. They don't have to stay at all. It would actually be a lot easier to lay out the form if there weren't subgroupings. If there's other names that everybody can agree on that make sense to group them in, or not group them in, or put them all in alphabetical order, or some way to prioritize them, it can be done. But we need you can't say today, well, we think this will be good. Well, we've used it for 60 days. Now we want to change it to this. Oh, well, yeah, that was pretty good, but now we want to change it to this, because every time we change one of these custom forms, it will change the name. You have to change the name of it to publish it at the state level, and it makes another iteration of the forms. The other part of this we haven't shown you yet, and I don't know if Kathy was planning on showing you, I set this form up as a database form so that for these GSSPs, after they're created, you can go in and write an ad hoc and display the GSSP settings for every kid in the school or every kid in the district and see what the date range is, check to see if the document's locked, unlocked, all kinds of things in ad hoc. So we could go in ad hoc, we could go in and pull for all students who are gifted category, general intellectual ability. Show me every kid that's GI that has a current year gifted service plan for grade skipping. And you can see everybody that has grade skipping in one ad hoc pull instead of looking at each kid's records individually, which of course you can do that now in ad hoc against their actual gifted documents, but you can't get that history of when it changed. So you could never tell that last year the kid had in 8th grade they didn't have any dual credit courses. With the GSSP saved as a historical document, you'll be able to see what the services were when the student was in 8th grade using ad hoc or looking at the documents directly versus what they are when they're in 10th grade, kind of thing, because we'll be able to keep that history record. So to keep that history and make it pullable and ad hoc, we kind of want to figure out the form in the beginning, do it well, and leave it alone so that we can keep that history pulling from the same named custom form. Because every time we change the name, you'd have to ad hoc a different set of data fields.
So those are good things to know. So
and we can
the
KDE could write custom reports to pull it more than just ad hoc, but the data is stored in the database once it's created this way.
Right. So I've got another meeting at 2:15. So and I did want to talk a little bit about, some possible changes to the progress report. But before we do that, Kathy makes a good comment about you don't know how to use it. And so, Kathy, before we would ever publish anything, there would be an opportunity for people to, what's the word I'm looking for? To use it, to work with it, to see how it works, to see if there's things that we would need to fix before it would be published. Now, you wouldn't be able to publish it and then after 60 days come back and go, oh, we don't like this, we don't like that. That would be something that we might have to wait a year to change those types of things, because it just takes a while to make changes, and we wouldn't want to be doing that, in the middle of a school year. So, but we would be able to test it
Kathy,
to see what all goes on with it.
Are you saying piloted in some schools and not in others?
No, I think there are different staging sites right across the state that have access that can use it, right?
Well, when we created this in the one site that you have access to, the if campus creates the form to publish it, it would be published to all sites. And I don't know if they can create it. I don't know if they would create one and publish it just into the staging sites for us to play with. I made this myself. And the one that I've done, it would not be the official one that really goes out. Campus has to create the official one that gets published. So I don't know how much we could open it up to play with. Your sandbox environment that somebody's talking about, it's a copy. It's the same as your production environment. If it's available in sandbox, it would have to be available in production. We could tell people not to use it, and we could check with campus to see, could we publish the form, tell people to test it in sandbox, not to use it in production yet, knowing that we may make changes and it would mess up their history, and then tweak it and then say, okay, now it's good, go. I don't know how much of that flexibility we've got, because this is a custom form, not a, it's just because the way the function, this is core product functionality, this custom form, it's not really designed to, they really expect you to create this in a district, make the one you want, you'd be able to play with it yourself, you'd decide, and you'd be like, okay, yeah, we're going, and now we're going to make this where everybody can see it and give them access to it. The statewide thing and trying to test things statewide, it gets much more difficult. The staging sites are only certain districts have staging sites. The reason I didn't make this do 11 things is because you have to recreate this individually in each district, and every element, every field that shows on the screen that's going to auto-populate, you have to set the settings. There is no, I don't have any way to copy a custom form from one district to another district. That's not a function that's in campus. Only campus can do that. So, so we would have to hand create this in multiple places to do it. It possibly could be done. I mean, anybody can make this form themselves with what I did. Any of you could do this. It's just not, it's tedious. So, so I don't know how much of that we can do with the lots of testing, Kathy. We definitely could do sessions like we've got now, where we let people go in through Teams, give them control of the screen, let them run some fields and play with it. But I'm not sure we can really like have it where they can do it in their own sites.
Right.
Because this is a scrambled site right now, so none of these kids are real. But
that, Lisa, if you don't mind my just saying this, Kathy, that I would love to have just an example of this, just to show my own GT coordinators at the schools, and just the 4 of them at middle school, and ask them what they think about this in comparison to the one we're using now, to see if they'd like to abandon the one we're using and jump on board here, and what they think, because they're the ones in our district that are actually filling this out and completing it on the kids and having meetings with parents. So I'm throwing us out. I'd be happy for my people to look at it if you go that route.
Well, and we can definitely give you, like where I had this as a PDF form, or even as the Word document, the layout, we can give you the layout of it, of what it looks like to discuss, or give you a sample. We change this kid's name to Gifted Student 1 or something like that. So it's not, even though it's a fake name, so nobody thinks it's a real kid. Where you could see what it looks like to show them, but not necessarily in campus be able to create new ones and play in your sites with them.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Good feedback. So Kathy Carver was asking about how other departments do other forms. I don't know that I can speak to that. I was in IDEA for a little while, and there's a lot that goes on with meetings. They have a advisory council called CGIC, and whenever they change their forms or whatever, there's a lot of thought that goes into that, and kind of like we're doing here. before they make any changes. And Lisa, you might be able to speak to that better than I could.
In this one site that I was playing in, there's lots of custom forms there. I don't know how many of them are state published and how many of them are district created. They're just copies of that this district did it. And somebody else earlier said the custom form we have. So whoever that was has played with it and has made their own custom forms. What there is a category for gifted custom forms already. So, you have to create an editable a fillable PDF form and have that ready, and you import it into Campus, and then you add the Campus fields on top of it. Is the way this works. But the PDF is the key, getting it right there first. And it's a tedious process, but so some districts probably have hundreds of custom forms. It just depends on if somebody at the district has played with it and really used it much. Tatiana?
Yeah. So I understand that districts can make custom forms, but are you saying that we could have made this and had it pre-populated in our own district?
Well, what I'm telling you, the person at Jefferson County that showed me how custom forms work, showed me and Kim and Hillary, that had done a training on custom forms for Infinite Campus in the data days thing in the fall. She didn't know this was possible. She didn't think it was possible. So she was making this grid layout, but she was not making it auto fill in. She was still they have one that their teachers are going in and clicking the check boxes all over the place to put the fill in the blanks the right way. Right. So I was playing with something else and was like, if it can let me choose which IEP I want to use, why can't I choose which gifted record I want to use? So I just tried it and worked. But we've been told for Campus that said you couldn't do this.
And see,
several people have said it wouldn't work, so it does. So we're just going forward with it.
Our argument for the last 4 years has been, if this can happen with IEPs, why can't it happen with GSSPs? So I'm really, really happy that somebody figured out how to do it. I am a little bit, shocked and surprised that to be told that we could have pre-populated it on a district level, because we've really been trying for a long time to get this going, and we were, told that we couldn't. But better late than never.
That's what we kept asking Kathy. We said, has anybody in the district, usually if it's possible, somebody in the district has done it and figured it out and has one. And we kept saying, does anybody have one that works that we can say, hey, here's one that works, kind of thing. And I like to dig into things and play with things, and I just got lucky. So,
right. And I don't think any of us mind the tediousness of anything. We'll do it. We will put the time in if it saves us time in the long run. And you asked a question a while ago, and I don't know that it was ever answered. You asked if this form and the setup, was acceptable. And I've just got to say, it's like a dream come true if it can just be tweaked that little bit to make it user friendly for the parents.
I understand. Beth?
Lisa,
we're over time, I think.
Okay. Okay. We have one. It's old and it did do all of this. That's it. That's all I was going to say. But the problem is there's one person who knows how to fix the programming issues, and that's when we ran into a wall. So
yeah. Well, and ideally, it doesn't make sense for 172 districts to go through the tediousness of setting this up. So that would be why we'd want to do it at the state level, have Campus publish it at the state level, so everybody has the same thing. It works the same way, and it's set up and it's running right for everybody, and we don't run into something goofy like my 2 fields that are populating record 2's values into two columns, you know, so that we have it right before it ever goes out. It also means making sure we're pretty confident, unless we just totally boo-boo something like that where it was a mistake that we put the same field in 2 places, that we have a layout that is everybody's pretty comfortable with. It still wouldn't be that there's districts now that don't use the state's GSP form, I don't think. So
True.
and the nice thing for Kathy about this is if we use this and do it as a database, then our team in school data services can write a report against the database fields and give her data on at the state level on how many kids have a JSP active for this year. You know, how many kids have had a progress report done or something, you know, things to that nature. That right now, because these records will not sync to state edition, so she still won't be able to see them and open them, but she really doesn't need to because it's just a copy of the gifted record, right? But knowing that gifted service plans have been provided to parents is a nice thing to know, and that the progress reports are being done. So, and it would give you at the district level with that database a fast way to figure out how many kids' progress reports have gone out. You know, is there some kid that got missed? We think we did everybody's, but there's one that's missed. Kathy, did I do a progress report form?
No, I
remember
think
if I
we
did or
talked
not.
about, what we would like to do. Would it be
But
okay if we
basically, the
maybe set
progress,
aside some time to do that, maybe next week or the week after, because I really need to get ready for my next meeting.
I
So
understand.
would it be okay if maybe
the-
we give people a chance to think about it,
Sure.
and then we come back again and say maybe a week or two, look at people's, send out another doodle poll or
Well, and
something
you
and
may
look at
just want
people's.
to give people copies of this layout so that they can
Mm-hmm.
talk to other people in their districts, you know, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Okay.
But basically what I was going to say on the progress report is harder to auto-populate because you're going to have multiple teachers commenting on, you know, at least in my schools, if a student was general intellectual ability, sorry, then every teacher that taught that student needed to have their own comment line on general intellectual ability. So pretty much the only thing I'm thinking we can do on that is we could do something at the top that says the student is identified in these gifted areas. So you knew what they were. But when you got down to the individual teacher, the teacher's lines, we could make it, I think, a drop box that lets them pick the area of giftedness. So it types in nice and pretty, and then they type in their own name, and then they add their comments, because the progress report is more comments that it's not, there's nowhere to pull it from. You know, you've just got to type in your comments, but we could at least pull in the service areas, and then you would have the fully populated GSSP to go with it. And the parents would be able to see both on the portal. So if they're locked.
All right. So I hope that I really appreciate, Lisa, you asking, responding to so many questions. I appreciate everybody's feedback. So I think next steps would be I'll work with Lisa to somehow or other, print this out so that we can send it to you guys to look at, to share with other districts to get some feedback, and then we'll set up some time to talk again.
And Michelle is saying it needs to be printer friendly. The layout is confusing. Do you mean the existing GSSP, what we're looking at now, or the progress report? Basically, send Kathy an email with details of what you like and don't like, I guess.
That's a good idea.
Oh, Michelle says the progress report.
Okay.
And it's difficult too, because you've got to leave enough spaces in there for everybody to have comments. Even one kid might only need 3 blanks, but some other kid needs 100. But if it's landscape, page 2 needs to be landscape, Kathy says. Is that
Right. The way it
Okay.
prints out now, if you've got more than one page, the next page prints out in portrait, which it's really,
That's weird.
it is weird. It
Okay.
is. But those are good things to know. So yes, we'll meet again. I'll work to send you guys a hard copy of this so that you can share it with the people in your districts or other regions to talk about. And maybe we come back rather than in a couple of weeks. Maybe we come back maybe we come back in a couple of weeks. Maybe that would be best. Or would you rather come back in a month? I know we're getting into the end of the year, so
Either way, we just are so appreciative of the hard work y'all are doing and listening to us, even though we sound like we're really nitpicking. We appreciate it. We really do. I don't ever want, when you read my comments, sometimes they don't come across as humble and as I mean them. So thank you very much.
Oh, I had the same thoughts when I started playing with this. Like, I don't like having to show 0205. I wish I could get general intellectual ability to fit in that little box.
Well,
But
I
then the
abbreviate
form's going to get really big.
GIMA. That's all my parents seem to follow those abbreviations.
well, that's good to know. Well, thank you guys for meeting with us today, and hope y'all have a good rest of the week, and we'll get back in touch with you guys and follow up with a hard copy for y'all to share. So thanks again. And
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
thank you, everybody.
day.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to you later.